Hey everyone, it's your homie Hermit. We're back with another reaction. This time we have another special one. Another Memoirs of World War II reaction. This one is number 14. It was the second most popular one on their channel. It's D-Day Things You Don't Forget. I'm very excited to check this one out. I'm a huge history buff. I love hearing stories of like men who were actually in conflict. I love hearing their stories, and I just like World War II in color, World War II in HD, stuff like that. I was all about it. I was always about reading books from World War II as a kid, so I love doing these reactions and hearing these incredible true stories about the greatest generation from the greatest generation. Um, Before we hop into this, if you haven't already, be sure to hop on over to Memoirs of World War II on YouTube and drop them a sub as soon as you're done with this video, because they definitely deserve all the attention on the work that they're doing. So let's hop into this and listen to this great man's story.
When we hit the beach, we knew there was no doubt in our mind that we had to take that beach. Things like we went through are just things you don't forget. I mean, it's impossible. Well, when the war broke out, I was still in high school. I was 16 years old. I didn't think the war would last 6 months, really, when I first heard about it.
Right?
2 years later, I had graduated from high school and went to aircraft school to take the same schooling that the Army Air Corps men did. And I went down there trying to get in the Air Force, and I was drafted in the Army.
Oh, wow.
Although he had his sights set on the skies, Harold McMurrin was sent to the United States Army with the 546th Maintenance Company. The closest
That you never know though. In a different timeline, in a different world, he could have been in the skies and never made it home. You know, he could have been, oh, you're a mechanic. Well, now you're a gunner, and now you got to protect bombers. You know.
In the Army.
Although he had his sights set on the skies, Harold McMurrin was sent to the United States Army with the 546th Maintenance Company. The closest he would come to an airplane would be as a repairman for a height finder,
Oh,
an
wow.
instrument used to determine the altitude of enemy aircraft. But to where Harold would be deployed was still a mystery.
The day before you ship out, if you got ODs, you're going to the Atlantic side. If you got
okay.
khakis, you're going to the Pacific side. They didn't have to tell you. When you went through there and they started issuing you those clothing, you knew where you was going.
I bet those dudes were nervous as hell, wondering what clothes that they were going, or they were getting, where they were going to be going.
When they started issuing you those clothing, you knew where you was going. And we didn't want to go to the Pacific, so we lucked out in that respect of going to
Yeah, I bet they were so incredibly nervous.
the Pacific. So we lucked out in that respect of going to the European theater.
But it's still no walk in the park.
Harold may have counted himself lucky, but before he would ever set foot in war-torn Europe, the war would find him.
We were sent down to the English coast. That was one of the worst places that you could be because the Germans had Air Force bases just across the channel.
Oh.
And they would bomb us just about every night. And we had foxholes to get in, But if one of those 500-pound bombs dropped within 100 yards of you, it'd bounce you out of that hole just like you had springs in your shoes.
Oh,
And
wow.
you crawl back in another one, hit close, do the same thing.
But the nightly bombings were only a glimpse of what was to come. Soon, Harold would find himself advancing, straight into the jaws of death. Since late 1940, the Allied forces had been chipping away at Adolf Hitler's global conquest, finally achieving victory in northern Africa and a successful invasion of Italy.
Yeah.
But the Allies knew that the French coast was the gateway to victory in Europe, and in June of 1944, they were finally ready to take it. Operation Overlord would be the largest seaborne invasion in history, landing over 150,000 troops with intent to drive Hitler's armies back from where they came. Germany knew the invasion was coming. The only question was where.
Yeah.
Hitler was determined that we were going to invade up at Calais. And he kept his 2 SS divisions up there, even when his generals told him that we was coming in on the beach. He said,
I remember hearing from a documentary that General Patton had like inflatable tanks and planes, and that's what actually was the final decision that fooled the Nazi Germany into thinking, or well, the Nazi army into thinking that they were invading in Calais instead of in Normandy.
his 2 SS divisions up there, even when his generals told him that we was coming in on the beach. He said, that's just a decoy down there.
But the real decoy was just off the coast of Calais, where the Allies amassed a false army under the supposed leadership of General George Patton to draw Hitler's attention away from the beaches of Normandy.
I didn't figure they were going to talk about that. I thought they were just going to talk about this man's story.
Away from the beaches of Normandy.
That's cool that they give you details like that
Up
too.
on Calais on the English side, they were putting tanks made of rubber, blow them up, trucks and everything up there, just stacking them in there.
The deception had worked, and the defending German forces were split. In the early morning of June 6th, the invasion was underway.
We loaded on the LST and we started to move out.
But it seemed like anything that could go wrong did go wrong. The Navy bombardment and Allied bombers missed crucial German targets, leaving the enemy defenses largely intact. American tanks sank beneath the waves before they could reach the shore.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't even know they tried to get tanks to hit the shore. That's something new I just figured out, or just found out.
American tanks sank beneath the waves before they could reach the shore, and the airborne paratroopers deployed behind enemy lines were left scattered and disoriented by adverse weather and enemy firepower.
The 101st and 82nd Airborne Division, they dropped before daylight, and that was a disaster.
Yeah.
I went in at 7 a.m. The bodies were drowned and been killed while they were still in the water.
I couldn't even imagine the sight.
We went in way, way too early because they had not taken as much of the beach as they thought they would. So when we got there, we actually became infantry. We were not maintenance,
wow.
we was infantry.
With the battle still raging
When I don't know like how much information trickles down, but I could imagine that would be world shattering to show up thinking they're gonna take this beach, we're right behind them, and you show up and they're still trying to take it, and now you're like, okay, well, Now we have to take it, you know, we all together have to take it. That's incredible. I couldn't even imagine what could be going through your mind.
Infantry. We were not maintenance, we was the infantry.
With the battle still raging when he reached the shore, Harold was forced to abandon his equipment and join in the fight.
The Germans had just about every inch of that beach covered with machine gun fire. You could see it, the bullets hitting all around you in the sand just popping up all around you. There was very few of us that made it through without getting hit. No further from me to you. You just see him just blood and guts everywhere, hit with a machine gun, 50 caliber machine gun. And you'd be splattered with his blood. Not no way to really clean it up from you. And you're wondering, trying to find out where that fire came from, and maybe you could return some fire. But they were firing from so many different directions. You never knew which one actually hit you, buddy. You just was praying you wasn't the next one that they hit. Hear them hollering, begging for help from the guys that was wounded, and some that was wounded trying to get up under a sand dune that was there, that was the best protection that was there at that time. But
I was going to say, which is what, big enough to cover your shoulder and your head if you crouch way down, face into the sand? Oh, wow.
But it's hard to describe your feelings when you see something like that.
Even 80 years later, it has that kind of, I can only imagine what it must have been like for him 5 years after he saw that. You know, immediately after. Like, when, I wonder what it was like for him when he first got home.
It's hard to describe your feelings when you see something like that. And the people that got less credit for what they did was the medics. They did not have very much training either, but they did a good job. You could holler for a medic, and the chances are there'd be one there in just about 5 minutes or less, because they knew that holler.
Wow.
In spite of tremendous casualties, failed plans, and fierce German resistance, the battered Allied soldiers reorganized, improvised, and persevered until their objectives were completed and the beaches were taken. D-Day may have looked vastly different than expected, but the gates were now open, and victory seemed just over the horizon.
When we hit the beach, we knew, there was no doubt in our mind, that we had to take that beach.
Right.
Because if we didn't, everybody would be a loser.
Yeah, everyone would be lost.
But we would sacrifice everything we had to take that beach. And I think that's the reason we got it.
Because so many men did sacrifice everything for that beach. And how many, look, in the long run, the things that we, like, they didn't know yet, you know? The things that were going on in Europe that they didn't know about. How many lives did they save, those men, by sacrificing all?
We had to take that beach. Because if we didn't, everybody would be a loser. But we would sacrifice everything we had to take that beach. And I think that's the reason we got it.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh.
Dude, That one was very emotional. I wish I could personally thank that man. If I don't know who watches my videos or who will see them in the future, but if there's any World War II veteran that ever sees this video, I want to thank you. Um, any veterans at all, period. But I I can't imagine. I wouldn't be able to live after seeing the things that that man saw. I don't think I would be able to, because he didn't describe anything, but other than the getting misted with blood and seeing someone get torn to bits with a 50 caliber machine gun, which it split him in half. I I can't. I don't know what else to say. If you guys haven't, you gotta subscribe to Memoirs of World War II so that they can keep interviewing the surviving veterans of World War II and Vietnam and Korea. As I understand, they do those as well. But yeah, they definitely are doing an amazing job spreading the stories of these people and their experiences so that atrocities don't happen again. You know, uh, I I don't know what else to say. I appreciate anyone who has watched this video. I almost got choked up there at the end when he was talking about the guys who gave all to take that beach. Um, I appreciate anyone who watched this. You all have an amazing rest of your day. I'll catch you at the next one. Peace.